Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 283 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Hey, Seth. It's early in the morning. I haven't been oogined yet. We're good to go.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, so many Ugins. But we'll get to that in a minute. Before we talk about Magic and M21, we have another co-host in Krim. How are you today, Krim?
Morning, Seth. Also haven't gotten Ugined yet, so it does feel relatively decent.
Well, speaking of Ugins, our main topic for today is Core Set 2021 and its impact on Standard, other formats too, like Modern and whatnot. So basically talking about new Magic cards in constructed formats, and then, of course, answering your fish mail. But before we get into all that, a reminder that our show today is once again brought to you by Spikes Academy, the first MTG online academy, and their courses are created by the best players in the world, and they're designed to help you improve your game. So whether you're trying to reach Mythic each season on Magic Arena, or you just want to crush your friends every draft, their courses will help you improve your game, and you can join today over at spikesacademy.com. So thank you so much to Spikes Academy for supporting today's cast, and let's talk some Magic. So Core Set 2021 is here. It kind of released middle of last week, I guess. There was like the early access day on Wednesday, coming out fully, I think, like Thursday on Arena and Magic Online. We haven't had a ton of huge tournaments yet. There's a couple of like challenges and a little bit of league results from Moto, but no real tournaments. So what has your guys' kind of first impressions, I guess, of Core Set 2021? Let's start with Standard. How has Standard been for you since the set release?
So like since Standard, like since its release in Standard, it just kind of feels a little bit like, you know, like everything pre M21, but plus Ugin.
I mean, if there's a slight bit of good news, I think Team Iraq is on the downswing, I would say. I feel like, personally, I've run into Team Iraq way less often compared to a couple of weeks ago, which, that, I think, is a positive. There are many Ugins. It does seem like many decks have some number of Ugins in them as just kind of a free roll. We kind of talked about this during like our top 10 videos and even spoiler season. There's just so much ramp in Standard, and so many decks are like accidental ramp decks. Like, so the big new deck, I think, is the Bant ramp deck, which kind of Bant mythics, I call it. It's just like you took all the mythics that are in, you know, blue and white and green, and you just stick them all in the deck, and you trust that having all those really powerful cards will win. But that deck, it just accidentally has a bunch of ramp. You got Growth Spirals, you got Uros. You're playing those not because you want to be a ramp deck so much as they're just really good cards. So you're like, hey, I got all these cards that ramp me. Why not throw in a couple of Ugins? That'll probably be good. That's a mythic. That fits the theme of my deck. So I feel like it's just so easy for decks to almost accidentally ramp into Ugin these days.
You say accidental as if everyone's plan is not like, okay, I'll just dirtle a bit and then drop an Ugin on turn 5 and see what they do. And then if it dies somehow, like Elspeth Conquers Death will come back. And then we'll see what happens. And then if like that somehow fails, like we still got Nissa, Teferi, Shark Typhoon, like, you know, what 5 mana for Earl from the graveyard? Like, have you managed to survive this long? Like, this, like it's like when you somehow like draft like 8 rares in your pool or something, right? You're like, every single one of these cards is a game-ending card. And the deck is just full of them all, and somehow, like, you don't die because aggro is, like, terrible. So, like, you just sit there and get to play interactive Magic by exiling all your opponent's stuff and bouncing it all. Like, I don't know. It's a tough time to play fair Magic after M21. It was bad before M21, but now it's bringing kind of the Tron modern experience to Standard, where you just get Ugin randomly after building up an impressive board state.
Yep. The amount of times I've gotten Nissa into Tron, into like Ugin, has just felt like absolutely disgusting. And I feel like it's kind of... I don't know, like Bant was already really good. The last thing it needed was a super duper powerful, 8-drop like this, which really is a 5-drop. I'm over here just fairly casting Ugin, and it's not as good as Cultivate. Like I've been seeing like turn 3 Nissas into like turn 5 or turn 4 Ugins and just stuff like that. So, I mean, and like, it's just that and Cat.
Yeah, Cat's making sure no aggro deck gets the challenge Ugin, like none whatsoever. Like, oh, you try to play creatures? Hold on, here's my 1 mana spell for you.
I got to steal all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bant Ramp deck, it is just really disgusting. Just like reading down the list of cards that are in the deck, it really is like every card is like 9 out of 10 power in a vacuum, or even 10 out of 10 power. Like, it just reads like the best cards. It's not even, doesn't really even have to be any specific synergy. It's just like every single card is busted. You got Crosses, you got Scavenging Ooze, you got Uro. You have 2 different Teferis. The new Teferis actually looked very good in that deck when I've seen it. Like, looting twice, filling the graveyard for Uro. You got Nissa, you got Ugin, you got Growth Spiral, you got Elspeth Conqueror's Dex, you got Shark Typhoon. It's just literally the most powerful in a vacuum cards in the colors, which happens to be the most powerful color combination in Standard. You just jam them all together, and it's really hard to play against unless you're doing something similar and also just trying to like go haymaker for haymaker. It's really frustrating. My experience has been it's really frustrating to play fairer decks, because even if you like, oh, I got my Duress, I'll get rid of their Nissa, and then, oh, I have an Agonizing Remorse, I'll get rid of the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. There's always another haymaker coming out of the top of the deck. I swear to God, I dressed the Vat Rap deck the other day, and they revealed the hand, and it was 2 little Teferis, a big Teferi, a Nissa, and an Elspeth Conqueror's Death. Like, what do I do? I just scoop right now? Like, is it just over? Like, what does it even matter what I choose with this Duress? They're all just ridiculously powerful.
That's how I felt about casting Thought Erasure. It was just like to pay 2 mana to like, no, I need to concede. Like,
are you trying to feels... 1-for-1 people in 2020? What are you doing, Crib? You used 2 mana on that. What are you doing?
But I got to surveil.
New Teferi is actually really good. Like, if there weren't all these other broken cards in Bant Rap, I think we'd be talking more about it. You know what beats Planeswalkers? Creatures with haste. You know what beats creatures with haste? Instant speed Planeswalker abilities. The fact
Shifting
that they loot,
Ceratops, though.
They can loot again. They can phase out. You probably had to contend with a little Teferi to begin with. And then to beat this, you got to overcommit on the board, and just in time for Ugin to come down and clean everything up. So very obnoxious. The only thing is, I kind of wish the other big Teferi here, Hero of Dominaria, is here, so you can just go like curve out the fairies and win in a non-meme deck, just Richard, like straight up real deck.
I mean, that is the one. So the things that have like really impressed me so far have been like, the new Teferi, and no, not because I'm a Teferi fanboy, but like, it's just like also really, really good. And it's like the looting has definitely filtered and gotten me through like tons of games. And on top of that, Scavenging Ooze has been really important right now. Like, it's felt so good, right? Like in this meta. And the one that I didn't expect to actually really like is Maze Mine Tome.
Yeah, that's a card that I have found to be more impressive than I thought too. It is actually, it reminds me a little bit of Treasure Map. I think it's worse Treasure Map, but it kind of fills a similar role there.
I feel like it might be better, to be honest with you. I like it because there's the mana, the ability where you don't have to pay any mana to scry. And
that's true. But you don't get the ritual effect ever, where you're like, hey, I get all these treasures and I get to cast my Ugin.
You don't, and that is true, but you get like the ability to just always use it just for free and gain 4 life. And you know, like it's, cause I'm not gonna lie to you, I got my hands a little dirty over the week too. I've been playing a little bit of Ugin myself, and but I've been playing like the Dimir Tezzeret artifacts. I've even been throwing in Shimmer Dragon. And that was like really cool with it. But yeah, so like with Tezzeret, you just get it back, you do it all over again, right? And it's felt really fun to play that, and like Karn the Great Creator. This deck is great, but it which by the way, if you like, so far my whole weekend has been playing the greediest decks. If you play a 1-drop, I probably lost. like unless it's Cat.
Speaking of 1-drops, even though aggro's not in the best spot, have you seen the kind of the resurgence of Mono Red Cavalcade? It's not like a top tier deck, I don't think, but it performed well in the challenge. I've run into on the ladder. One card that I totally completely overlooked during spoiler season and kills me very often is Chandra Spiralling. Thing,
yeah.
I didn't realize it gets double strike. So it's just a 2-mana 1/3 that when a source you control deals non-combat damage, gets +1/+0 and gains double strike. So if you just like play a 1-drop into that and then you drop like a Cavalcade and a hasty 1-drop, it hits for like 8 damage on turn 3. It is a really frightening card. So I don't know if aggro will make a full-on comeback because the meta's just, there's so much incidental life gain with Uros and it's just so hostile, I think, to being dedicated aggro. But that card definitely surprised me with its power level.
Yeah, like I definitely think that card was another powerhouse. Like, cause I too didn't see the double strike. I mean, I learned that it had double strike after I blocked it. As always, I don't read the card. I wait until something happens and then I find out. But and even it may not be like, you know what, like it may not be a powerhouse in standard. But Conspicuous Snoop is really good in Historic. There's no infinite combos, but like it's just a good card being able to play a ton of goblins. Like, it was kind of sweet.
Oh, speaking of Snoop, I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves by going to Modern, but man, goblins in Modern are good. I am just like blown away by how good that card is. I think that goblins are like going to be a legitimate tier 1 Modern deck now, just purely because of that and the combo it enables. We played it for Much Brew last night.
Yeah.
Just threw the deck together, first games with it, jumped into a league, easily went 5-0. The person that won the Modern Challenge over the weekend was playing not the exact same build. They had some like Thought Seizes and stuff that I didn't have, but they were also a Snoop combo goblin deck. So I think it might be time for goblins to actually be a real deck in Modern, which I think is actually fun. Yes, it's an unfair deck now because it's like a Splinter Twin combo that only costs 3 mana. You can do on turn 3 instead of turn 4.
It's the most fair deck I think in Modern, even then. I think that it's like goblins is just it. I can't wait, right? Because specifically for Historic, because once Jumpstart gets here, then you get Chieftain. So the only thing you're missing out on is what Munitions Expert and like Ether Vial. And you've pretty much, and like, you know, for Historic, I think that's insane. Like, I think having like Goblins has needed Chieftain for so long. But in like specifically speaking in Standard, I really hope that we get a Goblin deck in Standard. But I just, it's kind of a bummer that, I mean, like the coolest thing you can do in like Standard is what, like Torch Courier and then give Kranko haste and then swing, right? Like that's about as wild as Goblins get. It's not
keeping my fingers crossed for Zendikar maybe, because we have had good goblins. Like, I mean, Zendikar, that's original Goblin Guide territory, right? And that's like Goblin Rune Blaster. So there's been some really good goblins. So maybe we just gotta wait a little bit for goblins in Standard, and after we get Zendikar, then all of a sudden we'll be like, this makes sense.
Ringleader.
Yeah, that's like, the downside.
Yeah, like we're gonna lose Ringleader and whatnot, and you even lose like Goblin. Oh wait, by the way, Goblin Crater Maker can answer Ugin, so nice 8-drop, dude. It doesn't really matter because they usually follow it up with another one or like 19 other threats, but just say it. A lot of people forget that, and but yeah, like we lose a lot of goblins once Zendikar gets here.
Yeah, that is a good point, and that might be a concern. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It would be cool if goblins were good in Standard, but worst case, as you said, they're sweet in Historic and will be sweeter once Jumpstart releases, and they're definitely sweet in Modern. So even if they don't make it in Standard, at least there's places where goblin fans can use their favorite tribe.
Yeah. Oh, and like more on like the wonderful the Tezzeret Master of the Bridge has been a lot of fun because of that passive. The creature and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. That and Ugin the Ineffable. Like, I've just popped off on a silly amount of turns, just like firing off my entire, like the top of my deck. Like, I got Mystic Forge, Ugin, Tezzeret, and I just went wild, and it felt so good. It felt so good. And just popping off a ton of Solemns and having a Shimmer Dragon to sit back and just draw more cards. Like, oh, it's been so much fun playing blue-black like artifacts.
That actually sounds super fun. I love artifact decks, and Tezar Master of the Bridge is a sweet planeswalker. It's just, it would be cool if it was actually playable for a few months before rotation.
I mean, I would love that personally too, right? I mean, maybe I'm gonna force it, but like the thing here is, I think it's pretty sweet. It's just, I think this might be the fairest, like the most fair artifact deck I've ever gotten to play. Like anytime there's a good artifact deck, it's never just fair. It feels ridiculous or unplayable.
Have you seen the, I guess they're calling it Paw Blade?
Yeah.
The Boros Winota deck that's using like Alpine Houndmaster to get the random like draft dogs, and you also have like Selfless Savior, so you got a few dogs. That deck is sweet. I think that deck's sweet, but I gotta do a little mini rant. If you're Ember cleaving people to death, or even Winota people to death, you're not really winning with dogs. I hate to break it to you. I know you might be able to trick yourself into thinking you're winning with a dog deck, but really you're just Ember cleaving people.
My idea of an Ember cleave is Snapdax, Apex of the Hunt. That's my Ember cleave. And I built a Paw Blade deck myself, and I kind of like Bolt Hound. I think Bolt Hound might actually just be good outside of like dogs too.
Yeah, I could see it in like the Cavalcade style decks, or like some sort of go wide like weenie deck, because it pumps +1/+0 when it attacks. It pumps everything +1/+0, and it has haste.
Yeah, like it's just a really solid threat, which I think in older times of Magic, I think people would have been like, this is the most broken thing ever. Like, if this was like in like Amonkhet Red or something like that, or who knows, right? Or even before that, they would, I think the internet would be asking for this to like get banned.
It's like a bad Hell Rider.
Yeah.
It's a lot of damage really fast, but I mean, it's just, if you look at it, that just negates like an Uro trigger, right?
Yep. Yeah. Like nowadays, it's just like, cool, I'll play Uro and like negate everything you've done.
Have you guys seen the upgrades to Sacrifice? As if this deck couldn't get more obnoxious, we have Village Rites, which is like the best card in the deck, because now you don't even need to untap with Priest. You can just Village Rites away. And some saucy builds have been trying Archfiend's Vessel with Luris to try to get back as a 5/5, also Call of the Death Dweller. I tried that build. It just seems so slow. Like, I don't think you even need any of that, but I tried it. It was cool to get a 5/5 demon.
Have you played against the version that uses Gadrock or whatever? The Crown Scourge, the 3-mana dragon?
There's a version with that?
Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't seen that one either. That's spicy.
Like, I built a version, and then I played against a version. I think the person that played, like, I played against somebody, and like their version seemed way more tuned towards it, but like it wasn't bad. I thought it was kind of cool. Like, but I don't know. It might just be better to kill the opponent faster. It is a bit slow, and I don't know. You get a lot of food tokens, and you have your ovens and all that, so it's actually quite often that you get to like attack with it. The thing here is that it feels bad when it gets stolen.
Yeah, it does technically fall into the Claim the Firstborn mana cost, which is rough. I actually see the list here. Someone played it in the challenge. So this is more like the kind of a bigger, more mid-rangey sacrifice deck, going up to like Bolus's Citadels and Trail of Crumbs and stuff like that, compared to the more like aggro, Archfiend, Luris, everything costs like 2 mana or 3 mana, trying to like kill people quickly. So I guess it's kind of cool. There's some diversity within the sacrifice archetype and standard.
Yeah, like it's not just there's like big sacrifice and I guess little sacrifice, if you want to call it that. But like, and then I've also played against like a Naya dog deck that uses like, you know what I mean, like transmogrify as a meme and just whatnot. But like, have you seen the Naya tokens deck that just transmogs only into Pain Bacon, the End Runner forerunning maze thing?
And Race Forerunner.
Yeah,
I haven't actually seen it. I thought of that during spoiler season though. Does it actually work? It seems like it could possibly work.
Yeah, like I mean, because the thing here is there's so many Flash token creators, right? And like, so like in between Raise the Alarm, Omen of the Sun, stuff like that, right? Like there's so many ways they can generate tokens and easily. And and most of the sweepers are all at sorcery speed. So what they do, all you have to do is just kind of chip away at your opponent's health for long enough, and then it doesn't matter, right? At any point, once they finally sweep, you refill, and then you just kill them with like Pain Bacon.
That sounds pretty sweet. That's kind of a cool way to play tokens. There's also been, I don't know if it has any finishes, but I know a lot of people have been playing it, like the green-white +1/+1 counter deck.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Conclave Mentor and trying to just like Pelt Collector and Stonecoil Serpent and then like use Venerated Loxodon to put 2 counters on everything, and like Basri shows up there on occasion a little bit. I think that deck is an interesting take on aggro, and it can be very explosive with the good draws. It's not like super fast when you get a like average draw, so I don't know if Ugin is going to be an issue, and just like
I tried that
everything.
deck. It's when you nut draw, you basically are like unstoppable. You're like, what is this like? But every other draw is like so mediocre that you can't get anywhere. And the problem I found why Standard is so hilariously bad is you can't play 2-color aggro decks. Like you can't reliably play a 1-drop. And the minute you can't play a 1-drop means you're open to Teferi bouncing your way out of the game. So, like, yeah, when you get like turn 1 Pelt Collector, like you're good to go, right? You play Conclave Mentor, you play Hydras or Serpents and stuff, and you just go nuts. But then when you are on the draw with the tap land, like the game is over. Like you don't even have to like draw or look at your hand or do anything, right? Like you cannot beat Teferi into Uro, into Nissa or whatever. It's like too slow,
Teferi into Teferi actually is also very hard to beat.
Just like literally anything, right? Like you can't, you need haste. Like if you're going to play an aggro deck, you either need to be like super fast, like actual mono red, where you can play 1-drops and like haste them out, or you need to play Questing Beast or something to actually take care of all these planeswalkers. I tried Spark Hunter, Masticore, whatever. The card is terrible. I don't know what the answer to play. Like I'm like, all my opponents are like just planeswalkering me to death, like left and right, and I'm like, what's the counter to planeswalkers, right? And I haven't found one.
Mono green has actually been a lot of fun. Garrick's Harbinger has been what I wanted it to be, with Vivian's Arcbow Ranger, and like I always forget that it can grab a Garrick himself. So like I put like Garrick like Unleashed in the deck, and maybe I'm wrong. Like I kind of thought Garrick Unleashed was just stone cold unplayable, but it's pretty sweet being able to get it off the Harbinger, and like that's a deck where I board in the Spark Hunter Masticores. And it's felt pretty good.
Yeah, the plus on Garrick has been pretty good, I think. The like giant growth with trample. That's a pretty scary plus ability if you're trying to play defense to some extent. Is green fast enough to kill? I mean, I guess it probably is to kill people before they get their like big late game stuff going.
Well, like I pretty much make sure that Questing Beast never hits the board until I see a sweeper. Like, and then I play it. So, and like the nice thing here is like, you know, if they're relying on things like ECD, that doesn't help, right? Not when you're having like Stonecoil Serpents, the Stonecoil Stunner, as you would call it. And then just things like that have just been really good. And Garrick's Harbinger being able to like, you know, just draw our cards and then refill our hand at like a silly amount of times is insane. Like Garrick +1 or whatever on the Harbinger means that we get to look at the top 7 cards, pull any creature or Garrick, and then there's Vivian, right? Arcbow Ranger, which has kind of just quietly cruised its way through like Standard, but like I think it might actually be really good like right now in this mono green deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think those planeswalkers that can trample and pour through more damage seem really important when it's so essential to be able to like close out the game, or even like take down your opponent's planeswalkers, like trampling through a blocker. So
shifting Ceratops, like mono green has those hasters oddly that you would want like against all of these like, you know, Ugin like planeswalker decks. And Spark Hunter Mastercore out of the board has been solid, doesn't get picked off by Ugin in any sense of Ugin. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, mono green's kind of just replaced Gruul. Like,
yeah,
it just kind of does haste better. And then you have Scavenging Ooze now is a new addition to help you with the graveyard decks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like Questing Beast just dodges claim the firstborn, right? So like it's just naturally good. The shifting Ceratops, you have two big heavy hitting hasters.
Yeah, and like if you ever get to Gem Razor onto a Scavenging Ooze against a cat deck, I feel like it's over for them, because if they're relying on stealing it and sacrificing it, you know what I mean? Like they bring in like, and the hexproof from black on Garrick's Harbinger is also proven relevant, because like the cat decks and whatnot have been bringing in like, you know, Noxious Grasp and Eliminate. And all like, and like there's all the decks using black removal, and it's just like, cool, well, you can't target Harbinger. So, like mono green seems like if you want to just play an aggro deck, like I'd probably play that over, you know, Celestia tokens or mono red. Man, the like mono red, what a time, huh? Where that is just, that's kind of a joke, right? Like I always just go, I feel bad for red now. I'm just like, you know what? You'll get him, Tiger. Like
I can't feel bad for red, because red was really good for a long time.
Yeah.
Like we had a string for like 3 years where red was just always top tier. So it doesn't really bother me to see it not be top tier for once. But yeah, it's definitely different to not have mono red as a top tier deck to worry about. And instead it's just, like you said, it's all these like big mana decks or also or sacrifice decks for the most part. The other deck I think I've been playing that's been pretty fun is it Prowess? We got Stormwing Entity is one of the big new additions.
Well,
the other
wait,
one that
was
I forgot
Was it Prowess?
Oh no!
Yeah.
I set myself up for that. Also, I forgot about Riddle Form. Like Riddle Form's actually a good card. Just like being the. So now you have like Sprite Dragon, you have 2 other good prowess threats, you get all the cheap cantrips, and one card that I've been really impressed by is Frantic Inventory, especially in that deck where you have like crash throughs and ops, so hitting your second copy or even your third copy is not super unlikely, and when you're like drawing 3 for 2 at instant speed, Frantic Inventory is actually really good.
Yeah. Like, are you playing the version that is using like, you know, also like Infuriate and stuff like that too?
Yes, I've been yeah, I've been trying to like be as aggressive as possible to keep up with all the unfair decks, kill people before they get their late game online. So yeah, I've been playing like Infuriate as another pump spell, Raking Claws, like the cycling double strike instant from Ikoria. So yeah, having the option that sometimes you could just like jank people out on turn 4. If you just like play Stormwing Entity on turn 3 and then turn 4 you can go like Infuriate, whatever, Shock, and then double strike spell, that ends up being like 20 damage in the air, and you just like smash someone to death. And that's a good way to get in through a lot of the planeswalkers that are going on. Like you get around all the Nissa stuff, you get around
you still get bodied by Teferi.
Yeah, especially new Teferi and the ability to phase it out. Like you cast all your pump spells, especially if they have like little Teferi, so they can like force you to do stuff during your main phase if you have 2 creatures. Yeah. So they like force you to cast stuff main phase, and you play out your pump spell, and they're like, yeah, phase it out, and you're like, oh my god, why did they print another Teferi? Wizards.
But like in all honesty, that new Teferi is just a really good blue planeswalker. It's not. I don't think it's broken. At least not yet.
I still agree. I think it's solid, but I don't think it's. I hope it's not going to be oppressive. I said I didn't think it was going to be. I think it's been a little bit better than I even gave it credit for, but I still don't think it's going to be oppressive. Especially once we have rotation and like Little Teferi and Nissa and some of the other like busted planeswalkers to rotate out. I wonder, like, do you think rotation's just, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, do you think rotation's just gonna make standard fun again? I think one thing you mentioned, Richard, that I think is interesting or related to this is the mana issues of 2-color aggro decks. So let's say we get to rotation, miserable decks rotate out, and Zendikar gives us a good land cycle that maybe comes into play untapped. Do you think that is gonna like massively improve standard?
Depends what other broken cards Wizards prints. Like I think we just gotta go back to like 1-for-1 Magic. I don't know. I think like every card is such, like the game snowball out of control. Like so, like just one mid-range card that sticks on the battlefield is game over, and then it just becomes a race to who can go first. And I don't know, like the old days of like, oh, you played your 5-drop. I have like 2 turns to respond, right? It leads to like an interactive game of Magic. Whereas now it's like one planeswalker stuck. Well, it snowballs into a second planeswalker, which snowballs into like 4 extra cards a turn. Like, are you like 1 shock away from winning? If not, like it's over. So like, I don't know, right? Like as long as we have these powerful haymakers, and I don't know, like Wizards, I don't know if Wizards just escalates it further by making like crazier like aggro decks to do it. Like that's not the answer, right? Like if you make, I don't know, a hasty 2-mana 3/3 that like lightning helixes to deal with planeswalkers on ETB, that just does not fix it. Like I think they need to like de-power creep into just like, we'll play some vanilla creatures, we'll do some actual combat. You're gonna have to work for your card advantage. You can't just put these cards in your deck and then they just like make a deck, kind of like Bant right now. But you actually have to use synergy and like make choices and sacrifices between cards in your deck, right? So until we return to that, I feel it's just crazy power creep. Just play the biggest haymaker available and then get there before your opponent does, and then that's standard.
I think that like with M21 though, like I feel like the dial back and like, or like the way it, personally I feel like the power level was dialed back a little compared to how broken things were. And if that's the case, I think that standard gets a lot better. Like cause I'm imagining a set where well, I mean, I guess like everything that matters in Eldraine is banned, right? So like now I feel like Eldraine is just pretty much banned, right, from standard because like what's left, like Goose, like
yeah, Cat Oven, I guess. But
since Eldraine is primarily just banned from standard, you look at it as pretty much we're gonna lose the Ravnica sets, and then we'll have just like Theros and whatnot. So, and like the new Zendikar M21, like I think it'll be a good reset to standard. It'll be a refreshing standard. And like, I mean, right now the general consensus is that there's a lot of hype for the new set, but like already you can see there's a little bit of concern, and like the downswing is like, you know, like any kind of standard decline, at least in popularity, doesn't happen as early as it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but like I feel like with like talking to everybody and just seeing how people feel about standard right now, there's already just a little bit of momentum just kind of like bleeding out.
Yeah, and I mean at the same time, it was just a core set, and it's also like max power level standard, so it's really hard when there's already 7 pretty powerful sets in standard for things to change too much from one set entering the format. So I think it makes sense that, you know, things aren't going to be super changed thanks to Core Set 2021, but we can start counting down days to rotation, and I'm somewhat hopeful. I think the question is going to be, is Core Set 2021 the power level we're going to see moving forward? Because if I look at Core Set 2021, I think it's maybe the best core set they've made, and It is powerful, but outside of like maybe putting Ugin into the format with so much ramp, I don't see a lot of cards that are like broken or miserable. And maybe it's just because the power level of everything else is so high that cards like Teferi or some of the other cards that maybe they would be the best card of the format just aren't as good as the other broken stuff. But I feel like if Core Set 2021 is kind of like the power level of Zendikar in the next year of Standard, maybe things would normalize a little bit, but I don't know. Is it powered down a little bit because it's a core set and there's not like a dedicated theme where we're like, oh, we're building around the food mechanic and we're going to push it really hard, or, you know, whatever mechanic there is in Zendikar. So fingers crossed. I think Standard should improve at rotation. Whether or not it gets fixed, I think that's still up for debate in my opinion.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I'm starting to fall into the planeswalkers are the problem camp. You know, when Jace the Mind Sculptor was first released, a lot of people are like, oh my God, you ruined the game, planeswalkers. And like, I largely ignored that until like today, where it started to dawn on me, like, they're just so game warping. And it was fine when you had like a couple planeswalkers that were legal. But now, like, there's so many good planeswalkers, it kind of fundamentally changes how the game plays, which is why I don't think we're going to return to kind of the really old 1-for-1 style Magic that going forward is just kind of like planeswalkers, which are inherently like 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s, and then cards that can deal with them, which means, you know, they have to be either more aggressive or even more value than a planeswalker. And I think that's just gonna keep going because planeswalkers sell packs, right? They're kind of the face of Magic. So I don't see Wizards backing off, right? Like we used to always complain, like, okay, Chandra is the face card of the set. Chandra sucks. No one plays. So Wizards responded, right? Now every set has like a really pushed planeswalker that will be played, right? Like Teferi will be played. You can bet that, right? And since every set has that, for Standard, there's always like a large group of planeswalkers that are viable. And typically, because color fixing is decent enough, they can all go in the same deck, and you kind of have these Super Friends decks that aren't really Super Friends decks. So I don't know. I don't know that we're going to see anything at rotation. I think we're going to get another push planeswalker. Sometimes they'll go too far. They'll ban it, and then they'll make another one the next set, and then we're like, yes, Teferi Time Raveler, balanced, it's fine, right? No, it's not. Teferi Master of Time, balanced, it's fine, right? No, it's not, right? I don't know, right?
I mean, I can understand that, like, there's, like, planeswalkers are a ton of value all on one card. And I think they have to be for the mana that you're paying. Because also it's like a little bit like what you said, like creatures are getting more insane, right? Like, is at the time, like, let's say from Siege Rhino forward, Siege Rhino did so much, right? And planeswalkers had to keep up with that. But like answers were falling behind. And so now planeswalkers kind of answer the Siege Rhino-y cards and also like generate value. So I think they're okay. I think passives, I actually, like as I've said before, I love passives. I think they're great, but it just comes down, like example, like Nissa's passive. I'm tired of ramp. I'm tired of being like legitimately like cheating on mana. Just things like Fires of Invention, Wilderness Reclamation, Nissa doubling mana. You know what I mean? Like I'm tired of those kind of interactions. Like if it were just simply, I don't know, they played like Nissa on 5. She made a 3/3. That's not the worst, right? That's fine. Cause like the old Nissa Worldwaker was also terrifying when she was in Standard, right? She was always the hard answer to any deck I would play because Perilous Vault wouldn't exile the lands. And I'm okay with that. But the doubling of the mana is absolutely disgusting. So I think as long as once Standard completely, thank gosh, Growth Spiral is going to rotate and whatnot, and we lose those ridiculous cards. And like once Ura's gone, you can actually start playing aggro. I think once those cards go away, Magic can kind of recover from like 2019 green, as I call it. So
I mean, Uro's still around for another year.
Yeah.
That one's not rotating, so it'll be interesting to see if just losing like Growth Spiral, and then I guess Wilderness Rack will kill Temur Rack. So maybe and Nissa does go, so maybe it'll be better then. Maybe, but Uro is still really strong. On the Planeswalker thing, I don't think I agree with Richard. I think my theory is we're burnt out on War of the Spark, essentially. I think as much as I liked War of the Spark and the idea of it when it released, I think that all those Planeswalkers really ruined people's experience with Planeswalkers. And I actually think that the static ability thing on some Planeswalkers was one of the bigger problems. The Nissa, Teferis, Narsats, I think those are just like miserable. Like they're miserable. They should at least be symmetrical or something. Like, so I think that even though there were some fun static abilities, and I like the static on like New Teferi, for example, I think that's a really cool static ability. I think they do need to be super careful. But if you look at the Planeswalkers that are going to survive rotation, there's really only 14 of them. And if you look at the list, a lot of them are kind of like medium-ish, like the core set 2021 ones, like the new Garruk, the new Liliana, the new Chandra. I guess Teferi is proving itself to be good, but the other 4 are, I think, pretty safe Planeswalkers. Some of them will be playable, but I don't think they're busted. And then it's like, the Elspeth from Theros Beyond Death. That's like playable, but not, devastating. Calyx is very narrow. Luca has proven to be pretty narrow if you're not getting Agent of Treachery. So I kind of think that the Planeswalker level might be okay after we get to rotation, and then it's really War of the Spark that is causing like 90% of the issues.
I mean, yeah.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Wait, what if Wizards is like, War of the Spark was the greatest selling set in all of Magic history? how about we go return to War of the Spark and print like more Planeswalkers? Or like I don't know, man. It's gonna happen, right?
I'm on board.
It's because this concept is like the fundamental branding of Magic, right? Like the fact that you're a Planeswalker and the fact that there are characters with names that they'll never be relegated to an unimportant part of Magic, right? They want kids to talk about Teferi like they talk about Spider-Man or something, right? So we'll just keep seeing Teferi everywhere until one day we have like Teferi Halloween costumes and you're wearing Teferi socks, right? Krim will be living out his dream.
You're like getting me too hyped on the idea of these things existing. Like, once again, Teferi printed button-ups. Like,
I wonder if Commander can save us. Like, Commander likes legendary creatures, and it doesn't especially care about planeswalkers. What if, instead of focusing all the marketing and all, like, the face card stuff on planeswalkers, could you build the story, at least for, like, I don't know, a year or something, around legendary creatures instead of around planeswalkers? Do you think you could get that same, like, marketing value out of them, or does it have to be planeswalkers?
It's like the Netflix series on B-level superheroes, right? Like, sure, this Thalia is really strong and all, but she's still a mere mortal, right? Compared to like these like demigod people that travel around multi-universes and can do things. Like, I don't know, it's not as exciting, right?
Yeah. I do think that Commander Legends, that's not going to have a story, but I think they could, if they do more Commander Legends stuff. I'd like to see what a version of a set like that, but with story behind it, would look like. I think it could be cool because I mean they're bringing back a few like old school characters that I think we saw like Kamal, Fist of Croesus coming back, stuff like that. So it would be interesting. But then at what point will they just go, oh, why don't we just make a Kamal Planeswalker for Commander? Right?
Yeah, that's
I think
also true.
that would just be better than a legendary creature, right? I mean, or cooler. I mean, you couldn't make it your commander, but
I want to go just old school. Like, you know, when it was just like merfolk versus goblins. Like, we don't need named characters, okay? We just need tribes. I want to play a game with angels and dragons, right? Not, you know, Teferi, not wizards and things like that, right? But just literally like angels. Angels are cool. Let's play a game with them. I wonder if we'll ever see those kind of products again.
I'm in the camp of I really enjoy Planeswalkers. Yeah, there's been problematic ones, but that's because, like, I think they had to take a shot, as we had talked about a little earlier, and how like the power level of everything has spiked up. As I said, I think the Planeswalkers have to be good because what is it? Ether Revolt Tezzeret was like just not played, and he was the main character of that set, right? Or the main villain and whatnot. And like, you hate to see that kind of stuff where your set's like main character just gets unplayed and ignored. So that's why some of these, Oko truly was a villain, right? And we respect it, right? Like, we respect Oko. So
I mean, I just we've said this before, but if they're going to keep doing that, I feel like they really just got to start being more aggressive and faster with bannings. Like, I feel like they've said that they know they need to do that and that that's their plan, but it hasn't actually like filtered down into practice. If you're going to do that, you got to ban stuff real quick before everyone quits the format. And cause that's like the cycle we keep going through, is like, it gets really miserable. Everyone stops playing. Then eventually after like 2 or 3 months, they ban something, and then people come back for like a week, and then something else is miserable and they stop playing, and then you got to ban something else. And I don't know if that's like, I'm afraid if that's the cycle of Standard, that eventually people are just not going to come back. During one of those breaks where like, man, I really hate playing, Standard right now, they're going to find another game or a real life activity or some other hobby or something. And then that player is potentially just gone forever. So I think it's a risky cycle to go through if you're just having like broken stuff, ban broken stuff after everyone stops playing, and then rinse and repeat. So while I do think they need their, main characters to see play, I think there is also risk with going too far and maybe like turning people off to the game.
Yeah. They're like, but I do feel like most of that, like how you feel right there about like, quitting for a little bit, coming back. I feel like that's kind of just been 2019 forward, right? Those sets. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I feel like it doesn't. I wasn't even tired of Kaladesh, and I never got tired of Kaladesh all the way until it rotated. I enjoyed every set, like what it just guilds and whatnot, like those standards. No matter how many like Teferis there were, or how many planeswalkers were running around, all these things. Like I never got tired of the format. So you know what? I think it just kind of goes in waves. They tested this out. Like they wanted to see what it'd feel like if they increased the power level, and I think they got their answers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question. Is 2019/2020 like, is this the new normal and we just do this for the next 5 years, or is that kind of like an exception to the rule and things are going to normalize after rotation or after a couple more sets? So I think that's the big question right now, and I don't really know the answer. I hope that 2019 is not the pathway forward, and I would assume that Wizards probably hopes that as well. I can't imagine that, even with Arena and everything changing, I can't imagine that they want to be banning cards like every couple months in Standard. Like I just can't imagine that that's like ideal for them either. So hopefully, I don't know. I'm hopeful that things are going to improve at rotation.
Same.
Anyway, do we have any other M21 thoughts, or should we answer some fish mails?
All right. Let us move to Fishmail. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Rob Gala 1970, with the increased support for historic, human drafting, and now Brawl being free all the time, do you think Wizards has finally moved away from Arena being standard only and now see it as their platform for the future for most digital Magic?
Oh. I mean, I would say like it's the main marketable like engine or like client they have. They're like, hey, come play Magic digitally. They're gonna probably talk about that, right? And then I think how I see it is they hope that Arena will then be the gateway into like older formats like Modern and Commander, just because Commander is either you're playing with your paper cards or you're playing on Moto. So that's how I see Arena right now. There aren't enough. Like, I guess we'll see. Historic may become it will become bigger. And I think at that point, do they need to go back to Modern? I don't know. Maybe they just leave Historic as the farthest back they go on Arena and then just go with Pioneer in between.
Yeah, I think they've definitely moved away from Arena being standard only. I think that's, that much is pretty clear. I haven't heard anything or seen anything that makes me think that their plan is to have Modern and Legacy and Vintage and Commander on Arena. So is it going to be the only way to play Magic digitally? I still think that Wizards actually is planning on having both Magic Online and Arena up. And then Arena, as Krim said, they said it'll get Pioneer eventually. I expect that'll take, even with the pace that we're seeing with like Amonkhet Remastered coming out in August, Jumpstart, I still expect that's probably minimum 2 to 3 years, just when you look at how many like remix sets and master sets they have to make to actually have full Pioneer on there. So I think they'll go back to Pioneer. We'll have Historic as like our Legacy or Vintage essentially of Arena, but I still think that Magic Online will stick around for the other formats.
Yeah, I think Arena is the digital answer. Like anything digital that Wizards does in the future will be on Arena. Magic Online will exist. Like they won't shut it down until it just finally dies off. But we've already seen like all promotions for digital only go for Arena, right? Like the streaming partnership with content creators, things like FNM at home, like they could very easily have included Magic Online, but they chose not to. It's only Arena. So, and then with Jumpstart, you see them going out of their way to support Arena because Jumpstart was not originally slated for Arena, but they decided to add that on to kind of boost Historic. So I do believe, yes, this like everything digital that Wizards does going forward will be for Arena. And I agree with you guys. I don't think they're going to backfill Legacy or something just because like there's no reason for people to play Legacy. Like the whole reason for Legacy is you get to play with your old cards, right? Like they don't really want you to play Legacy. They want you to play Standard, but have some reason for you to keep your collection and to have it maintain some value. Given that there are no Legacy cards on Arena, it just doesn't really make any sense for them to really add it. They already have Historic as their alternate format and things like Arena Cube and Momir and things like that as other formats you can play. I just don't see any reason for Legacy aside from like maybe bringing vintage events just so people get to play with Black Lotus and things like that once in a while, like they did for Theros.
I mean, they could just put that into a cube, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see like a vintage cube or something, but it's just so many cards to actually try to have vintage proper, even legacy proper. That's like 25 years of sets with multiple sets a year and supplemental products. So that seems like, I mean, who knows? If that does happen, I would say that you're looking at like Arena being super successful in like 10, 15 years in the future, some very long time frame for it to get to that point.
All right. Speaking of Arena Digital, we forgot to mention that Mac released this week. So we have all these Mac players joining us on Magic Arena. It was a bumpy release because they all the Mac players got the black screen. They're like, "Oh my god, it's broken for Mac," and we're like, "No, it's broken for Windows too."
we got a black circle with the circle now. Or the black,
I tried on my 4-year-old MacBook, did not play at all. It was like on fire and not playing it. But I spoke to other people. It runs on like their like brand new Macs. It's just your fan is just going off. Like it's not having a good time. But yeah, otherwise it works. So we have Mac players. So mobile is next, right?
Yeah, this year they say.
I'm not ready for my phone to get that hot.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, MTG Bobby, with the recent companion rule changes, do you think Lutri should still be banned in Commander? It's virtually a telegraphed 6-mana dual-caster mage. Also, is it banned if it's your commander or in the 99?
So it's banned everywhere, and yes, I still think that it should be banned. The problem with Lutri isn't power level. The power with Lutri is just you get an extra card if you play Is It, and that throws like the whole balance of the colors and color identity and the format out of whack. So I think for me that's the issue with Lutri. Not that it's too good, because Dualcaster Mage isn't too good for the format. It's that you get an 8th card if you choose one specific color combination and no one else does.
I agree with Seth there on that one. Like it's just like the ability to just always have that card whenever you need it, even on a turn. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything this turn. I just go ahead and put it in my hand, right? Like it's even if it's telegraphed, it doesn't make it any easier in some situations.
Yeah. Next question, and Jerkson. What are the chances we get Aether Vial in Historic at some point? Would it be too strong in the format?
Yes. I think yes. Like by a landslide, Aether Vial would be way too strong.
I think that Aether Vial would probably be acceptable. I don't know if it would be acceptable right now. I don't know if I'd want it to come out, in whatever the next anthologies they release, but I think with the cards they're adding and how quickly Historic is growing, I think that's a card that will be fine for Historic in the not super distant future.
But think about this, okay? Think about this. Goblins, humans, we would essentially just be they would be modern power level decks in Historic.
I think you just want to counter things, Krim.
No,
Aether Vial does not allow the counter spells.
Like I haven't even played a counter spell in Historic in a minute.
Is it really too good? Like
yeah. You don't think so? Like instant speed, kite sail freebooters, like stuff like that, or going end of turn ringleader untap go wild.
But I like going wild with goblins, though.
This is true. Like it is sweet, but at the same time, it's like then it's just gonna be only humans and goblins, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Anything to completely shut down Field of the Dead and Nexus of Fate, I will always choose over that. So like if the meta is Aether Vial has to get printed to see those like decks disappear, I would gladly jump right into that. Please take us to that format.
How about this? We just throw it in anthologies, and if it's busted, we suspend it.
Great.
Just give it a shot and see what happens. Because I think that's one of the upsides of Historic, because you can theoretically suspend things really quickly and cheaply. So I would be down with trying it, and if it is too good, then just get rid of it again.
True. I mean that is true, right? Like the ability to just instantly change your your digital only format at any point, and the card's legal in it is great. I think Magic actually should be really taking advantage of that. And though I think Ether Vial may be a little too strong, I definitely would love to see them experiment a lot more. So
I mean, I think they should try it now, because how long before Historic overtakes Pioneer, and then people start playing Historic in paper, and then Wizards might be a bit gun shy about like banning things like left and right like very quickly. So I feel like they should kind of experiment now and figure out what they want their format to be while it's still digital only. Because things like Pauper, like it'll just spread to paper eventually if it's popular enough.
That's assuming Paper Magic continues to exist, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yes. Merfolk T. Would a fetch land cycle that fetches one of two basic land options, so basic island or basic swamp, with no drawback, be too good? 20 dual fetches be too much for Eternal formats and Commander?
I would say it's still too good.
Is it?
The land doesn't come into play tapped, right? Like it just gets an island, or like let's say like okay, it gets an island or a swamp, but basics only. But you know what I mean? It's not Evolving Wilds, and it's not Fabled Passage, where Fabled Passage requires you to have 3 lands prior for it to come into play untapped. I would still say that's still pretty good.
I mean, isn't that just like a fetch land? But we already have fetch lands, right? So it's like fetch lands with a little more restriction. So for formats, like would going from 10 fetches to 20 fetches really change anything?
Well,
So
I think more like standard.
okay, yeah.
Right?
So I think it depends on the format. In older formats, I don't think it matters. I don't even know if those cards would be playable. We already have a ton of fetches that do that, and we have Prismatic Vista, which does that but better for the cost of 1 life. So I think that those cards would be not super important or even really heavily played in older formats, because we already have enough fetch lands. In Standard, I think they would be pretty good. I think they would definitely be very solid. Dual lands, you get the shuffle effects and all that kind of stuff. So too good for Standard, maybe. Older formats, definitely not too good for, or even like super playable, I don't think.
I would actually prefer them for Standard over real fetches, because it limits you on your ability to make like 4 or 5 color decks. The problem with fetch lands in Standard is like if you have fetchable duels, you can go to like 3, 4, 5 color decks super easy. But if you can only fetch 1 color, it allows you to make 2 color decks, avoid our current problem where you can't play a 1-drop without going to like 4 colors as easily, since each of your lands only taps for 1 color. So I would actually like to see these instead of like real fetches in Standard. But then people are going to slaughter me because we want fetch land reprints in Standard, right? For price reasons.
I think you could achieve the same thing, though, by reprinting the fetch lands and just making sure there's no dual lands with land types in the format, as long as there's fetches.
Yeah, but then you can get budget, like crappy fetches for other formats. I think isn't that the whole appeal of this, right? Like this land would presumably be a lot cheaper than the real fetches. So I guess we can just circumvent this by just making the real fetches a lot cheaper. So
do you think people would be happy if fetches were still expensive, but you had these as substitutes? I think we'd still be getting like the reprint fetch lands videos and stuff. I don't think that would solve people's concerns with fetch lands.
All right, you've convinced me. We'll just make fetch lands cheaper and then avoid all of this. All right, last question. Azura Night Song. How do you guys feel about Peer into the Abyss in paper? I feel there's no easy way to figure out what half the deck is, especially if a game has been going on for a while, or as Commander. Seems like a counting nightmare.
You just go tabletop style. Just go tabletop style. You just take the top half. You make sure that that it lines up with the bottom half.
Oh, you're not even gonna count. You're just gonna slice it in half and look that they're the same height.
Yep. You go old school tabletop style. I did that with like Traumatize. I don't know. That looks like half. Okay, throw it away.
I mean, I assume you're supposed to just actually count your entire deck. Like that would probably be if you were playing that in a tournament. I assume that's what you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
which I don't think it's hard, but it definitely is kind of time consuming. I think the good news is it's cost 7 mana. I think it would be more of a concern if there was like a cheaper card that was going to show up in a lot of decks that made you count your deck. I think that would be problematic, but probably in this case, it's a 7 mana card for like against the odds decks. Maybe some like, I don't know, Commander decks would play it or something. So hopefully it's not going to come up too often just because the card itself isn't like super pushed to be constructed playable.
Okay, real question. Can you troll someone with this? Like, can every turn you count their entire library to be like, oh, but I play Pure the Abyss. I need to know this information. Like, can you get hit by a slow play warning or something? Or is it like, oh no, I guess you have to be able to count the library every turn? Can we Belichick them? Like, is this gonna work?
Oh man.
I assume that after you counted it once, you could probably just keep track. Like, oh, I drew a card since last turn, so I have this many left. So it probably gets easier if you actually tried to track it.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to drag a game to 1 hour.
After they count the cards in deck, ask them cards in hand. Can I see your graveyard?
Next week, Richard from MTGGoldfish, rules lawyering. Was about to lose, started counting cards for Pure to the Abyss every turn. Game ends in a draw. Is this scummy?
You know all that's gonna happen is like, yeah, you're gonna do all of that, and then you're just gonna cast something like, okay, Pelt Collector, your turn.
It's like Thoughtseize. Yep, that's it. That's all I got. I just wanted to know.
You're trying so hard to like bluff this card, and it's like Island, go.
All right, that's all the time we have for Fishmail this week. Thank you to everyone who sent in Fishmail. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail. And we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 283 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. So, we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes down in the world of Magic. So, until then, have a wonderful week. And this is the crew signing out.